In the blistering heat of the Nevada desert where the air shimmered with defiance, she stood alone at the firing range, her shots ringing out like a challenge to the world. They laughed, called her aim sloppy, her stance weak, until the SEAL commander's eyes locked onto the faint tattoo on her wrist, a mark that silenced their jeers and unveiled a truth they never saw coming. A past forged in shadows was about to rewrite their present. If you enjoy gripping tales of hidden strength and unexpected revelations, subscribe to Silent Stories for more unforgettable narratives delivered straight to your inbox. The range was a dusty stretch of hard-packed earth, lined with targets pockmarked from years of use. The sun beat down mercilessly, turning the air into a haze that clung to the skin. A group of recruits, all men in their early 20s, lounged against a rusted metal bench, their rifles slung casually over their shoulders. Their laughter carried over the faint pop of gunfire, sharp and mocking, aimed at the lone woman standing at the firing line. Her name was Lena Carver, though they didn't know that yet. To them, she was just the chick, a civilian who'd somehow wormed her way into their training session at the private range. She wore a faded black tank top and cargo pants, her dark hair pulled into a tight ponytail that swayed as she adjusted her stance. Her shots were erratic, some hit the target's edge, others missed entirely, kicking up dirt in little puffs. The recruits elbowed each other, smirking. "Yo, sweetheart, you sure you meant to hit that target?" One called, a wiry guy with a buzz cut and a grin too wide for his face. His name was Travis, the unofficial ringleader of the group. "Maybe try a BB gun next time." Lena didn't flinch. Her eyes, a piercing gray, stayed fixed on the target 50 yards out. She reloaded her Glock 19 with a practiced flick of her wrist, the motion smooth despite the uneven results of her shots. The recruits didn't notice the precision in her hands, only the misses on the paper. "Bet she's just here to impress her boyfriend," another recruit, a stocky guy named Mitch, chimed in. "Where's he at?" "Probably embarrassed." The group erupted in laughter, their voices bouncing off the concrete barriers. Lena's jaw tightened, but she didn't turn. She squeezed off another round, the bullet clipping the target's shoulder. Another miss by their standards. More jeers followed. "Man, I've seen blind guys shoot better than that," Travis said, loud enough for the whole range to hear. "What's the deal, lady? You lost a bet or something?" Lena lowered her pistol, her chest rising and falling with a slow breath. She turned her head just enough to glance at them, her expression unreadable. "Keep talking," she said, her voice low and steady. "It's cute." The recruits hooted, mistaking her calm for weakness. They didn't see the way her fingers flexed around the grip or the faint scar running along her forearm, barely visible under the edge of her sleeve. They didn't notice the tattoo either, a small, intricate design on her left wrist, half hidden by her watch. A trident entwined with a coiled snake, faded but unmistakable to those who knew what it meant. The range officer, a grizzled man named Hank, stood off to the side, arms crossed. He hadn't said much since Lena arrived, only grunted when she'd signed in and paid the range fee. He watched her now, his eyes narrowing slightly, but he kept his thoughts to himself. The recruits, however, were relentless. "Yo, Hank," Travis called. "You gonna let her waste ammo all day? Give her a kid's target or something." Hank didn't respond, but his gaze flicked to Lena's wrist. He tilted his head as if trying to place something, then looked away. Lena caught the glance but said nothing. She turned back to the target, raised her Glock, and fired again. This time, the bullet hit dead center. The recruits didn't notice, they were too busy laughing. The session dragged on, the sun climbing higher, the heat pressing harder. Lena kept shooting, her focus unshaken by the taunts. She switched to a rifle, an AR-15 from the range's rental rack, and her shots grew tighter, still not perfect, but enough to make Hank raise an eyebrow. The recruits, though, were oblivious, lost in their own bravado. Then the black SUV rolled up. It pulled into the dirt lot with a crunch of gravel, its tinted windows reflecting the harsh sunlight. The recruits fell silent, their eyes drawn to the vehicle. A man stepped out, tall and broad-shouldered, his presence commanding even in civilian clothes, a black polo and tactical pants. His face was weathered, his eyes hidden behind aviator sunglasses, but the way he moved screamed authority. The recruits straightened instinctively, their laughter dying in their throats. "Commander Reed," Hank said, stepping forward with a nod. "Didn't know you were coming by today." Reed didn't smile. "Unscheduled visit," he said, his voice clipped. "Heard you had a mixed group out here. Thought I'd see what's what." The recruits exchanged glances, suddenly aware of their own slouched postures and slung rifles. Travis cleared his throat, trying to look professional, but his earlier swagger was gone. Reed's gaze swept over them, lingering for a moment before landing on Lena. She was still at the firing line, her back to the group, adjusting the AR-15 sights. "Who's she?" Reed asked. "Who's she?" Reed asked, nodding toward her. Hank shrugged. Civilian. Signed in this morning. Paid cash. Reed's eyes narrowed. He took a step closer, watching as Lena fired a 3-round burst, all hitting within the target's chest. The recruits, now quiet, shifted uncomfortably. Reed's gaze dropped to her wrist, where the edge of her tattoo peeked out from under her watch. His posture stiffened, just for a fraction of a second, but enough for Hank to notice. Name? Reed asked, his tone sharper now. Lena Carver, Hank replied, glancing at his clipboard. No affiliation listed. Reed didn't respond immediately. He took off his sunglasses, revealing eyes that seemed to see through everything. He walked toward the firing line, his boots crunching in the dirt. The recruits watched, their earlier mockery replaced by unease. Lena lowered the rifle as Reed approached, turning to face him. Her expression was calm, almost bored, but her eyes locked onto his with an intensity that matched his own. Carver, Reed said, stopping a few feet away. That's an interesting tattoo. The recruits, still within earshot, leaned forward, confused. Lena's lips twitched, not quite a smile. You think so? Reed pointed at her wrist. Trident and snake. Not exactly a common design. She glanced down at the tattoo, then back at him. Guess I've got a thing for old symbols. Old symbols, Reed repeated, his voice low. Or old units. The air seemed to thicken. The recruits exchanged looks, sensing something they didn't understand. Travis opened his mouth to say something, then thought better of it. Hank shifted his weight, his eyes darting between Lena and Reed. You're not here by accident, are you? Reed said, his tone more statement than question. Lena tilted her head, her gray eyes unyielding. Just shooting, Commander. Same as them. She nodded toward the recruits, who were now dead silent. Reed studied her for a long moment, then turned to Hank. Clear the range. Now. Hank didn't hesitate. All right, everybody, pack it up, he barked. The recruits scrambled to gather their gear, their earlier bravado gone. They stole glances at Lena, who stood unmoving, her rifle still in hand. When the range was empty except for Lena, Reed, and Hank, the commander stepped closer. Let's cut the bullshit, he said quietly. That tattoo's from Task Force Serpent. Only a handful of people ever wore it, and most of them are dead or buried in classified files. So who the hell are you, really? Lena set the rifle down on the bench, her movements deliberate. She pushed her sleeve up, fully revealing the tattoo, a trident piercing a coiled snake, the lines faded but sharp. I'm nobody, she said. Just a ghost who likes to shoot. Reed's jaw tightened. Nobody leaves Serpent and just walks away. Not without a trail. She met his gaze, unflinching. Maybe I'm the exception. For a moment, neither spoke. The desert wind whistled through the range, carrying the faint smell of gunpowder. Hank, standing a few yards away, looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Reed broke the silence. You're her, aren't you? The one they called Viper. Lena's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes, a shadow of a past she'd buried. Viper's dead, she said. Died in a raid off the coast of Somalia. Check the files. I did, Reed said. Funny thing, files can be faked. Bodies can disappear. And people like you don't just retire to shoot at backwater ranges. Lena crossed her arms, the tattoo now fully visible. What do you want, Commander? A confession? A medal? I'm just here to put holes in paper. Reed stepped closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. I want to know why one of the best operatives Task Force Serpent ever had is playing civilian in my backyard. And why she's letting a bunch of dumbass recruits think she can't shoot. For the first time, Lena's lips curved into a real smile, sharp and dangerous. Maybe I like the quiet life. Or maybe I'm waiting for something worth shooting for. Reed didn't smile back. You're not waiting. You're hiding. Her smile faded. She glanced at the targets, then back at him. You want to know what I can do? Fine. Set up a course. Your call. Reed studied her, then nodded. Hank, get the tactical setup. Full sim, live rounds. Let's see if Viper's really dead. Hank hesitated, then moved to comply, dragging out crates of gear and setting up a makeshift obstacle course. Barriers, moving targets, the works. The recruits, now gathered at the edge of the lot, watched in confusion as Hank worked. Reed handed Lena a fresh mag for the AR-15 and gestured to the course. Show me, he said. Lena didn't hesitate. She stepped up to the starting line, her posture shifting, less civilian, more predator. The recruits murmured, still clueless but sensing something was about to change. Hank hit a timer and Lena moved. She flowed through the course like water, her movements precise, lethal. The AR-15 barked, each shot hitting dead center, heads, hearts, no misses. She ducked behind barriers, rolled, fired from prone, switched mags without breaking stride. The recruit's jaws dropped. Travis, the loudest of them, stood frozen, his earlier taunts echoing in his head. When Lena hit the final target, a steel plate at 100 yards, she lowered the rifle and turned to Reed. The timer beeped. Hank checked it and whistled. 22 seconds. Clean. Reed didn't look surprised. He crossed his arms, his eyes locked on Lena. Viper's not dead, he said. So why are you here? Lena wiped sweat from her brow, her breathing steady despite the run. Maybe I got tired of the game. Maybe I wanted out. Nobody gets out, Reed said. Not from Serpent. Not without a cost. She looked at him, her gray eyes hard. I paid my cost. You want to dig into it, go ahead. But I'm not your problem. Reed didn't respond immediately. He glanced at the recruits, who were now staring at Lena like she was a ghost. You're dismissed, he told them. They scattered, tripping over themselves to leave. When they were gone, Reed turned back to Lena. You're not done, he said. Not with that tattoo. Not with what you can do. Lena picked up her Glock, holstering it with a practiced motion. I'm done when I say I'm done, she said. Tell your boys to watch their mouths next time. She walked away, her boots kicking up dust, the tattoo glinting faintly in the sunlight. Reed watched her go, his expression unreadable. Hank approached, shaking his head. She's trouble, Hank said. She's more than that, Reed replied. She's a weapon. The desert swallowed Lena's footsteps as she headed for her truck, parked at the edge of the lot. She didn't look back, didn't need to. She'd spent years running from the shadow of Viper, from the missions that left scars deeper than the one on her arm. The tattoo was a reminder, a brand she couldn't erase. Task Force Serpent had been her life, black ops, covert strikes, names and faces she'd buried in places no one would ever find. But the life had a way of finding you, no matter how far you ran. She climbed into her truck, the engine roaring to life. The recruits' faces lingered in her mind, their shock, their silence. She almost felt sorry for them. Almost. As she pulled onto the highway, the desert stretching endless before her, her phone buzzed. A blocked number. She ignored it, but it buzzed again. With a sigh, she answered. Carver, she said. The voice on the other end was low, familiar. You can't hide forever, Viper. She hung up, her grip tightening on the wheel. The tattoo burned against her skin, a promise and a curse. The road ahead was empty, but she knew it wouldn't stay that way. Not for her. Lena drove for hours, the Nevada sun dipping low, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple. Her truck, an old Ford with chipped paint and a stubborn clutch, rattled along the empty highway. She kept the windows down, letting the dry wind whip through the cab, carrying away the echoes of the range. The call from the blocked number gnawed at her. She'd heard that voice before, too many times, in too many dark corners of the world. It belonged to a man she'd hoped was dead. Or at least gone. She stopped at a gas station just outside a nowhere town called Dust Creek, the kind of place where the only signs of life were a flickering neon sign and a stray dog sniffing around the pumps. She filled the tank, her eyes scanning the lot out of habit. No one watched her, but the hairs on her neck stood up anyway. Viper's instincts never slept. Inside the station, a bored clerk barely looked up from his phone as she paid for the gas and a bottle of water. She noticed a stack of local papers by the counter, the headline screaming about a missing hiker in the nearby mountains. Something about the story tugged at her, a detail about the hiker's last known location, a remote trail near an old military outpost. She grabbed a paper, tossed a few bucks on the counter, and headed back to her truck. Sitting in the driver's seat, she skimmed the article. The hiker, a 30-year-old named Daniel Pierce, had vanished 2 weeks ago. No trace, no ransom, no body. The outpost mentioned was decommissioned, but Lena knew better. Places like that never stayed empty. Not when people like her old handlers were involved. Her phone buzzed again. Another blocked number. She let it go to voicemail, but a minute later it buzzed with a text. Dust Creek. Midnight. You know where. Lena's stomach tightened. She didn't need to guess who it was or what they wanted. The past wasn't just catching up, it was sprinting. She drove to a motel on the edge of town. A rundown place with peeling paint and a vacancy sign that flickered like it was on its last legs. The clerk, an older woman with a smoker's rasp, handed her a key without asking questions. Lena's room smelled of stale cigarettes and cheap air freshener, but it was clean enough. She dropped her bag on the bed and pulled out a small lockbox from under the passenger seat of her truck. Inside was a second Glock, a suppressor, and a few extra mags. She didn't plan to use them, but Viper never went anywhere unprepared. At 11:30, She left the motel, driving toward the coordinates she knew without needing to check. The old outpost was tucked in a canyon 20 miles out, a relic from the Cold War that officially didn't exist. She'd been there once, years ago, on a mission that left 3 men dead and her with a new scar on her thigh. The kind of place where secrets went to die or to be reborn. The canyon was dark, the moon barely a sliver. Lena parked a half-mile out and went the rest of the way on foot, her boots silent on the rocky ground. The outpost loomed ahead, a squat concrete building half-buried in the hillside. She crouched behind a boulder, scanning for movement. A single light flickered inside and she caught the faint hum of a generator. A shadow moved near the entrance. Then another. 2 men armed, their silhouettes bulky with tactical gear. Lena's hand rested on her Glock, but she didn't draw. Not yet. Viper, a voice called, low and deliberate. The same voice from the phone. No need to hide. We're all friends here. She stepped out, her hands visible but close to her holster. The man who spoke was leaning against the doorway, his face half-lit by the glow from inside. He was older now, his hair grayer, but she'd know him anywhere. Marcus Kane, her old handler from Serpent. The man who'd pulled her into the shadows and then left her to drown in them. Friends don't call from blocked numbers, she said, stopping 10 feet away. The 2 guards tensed, their rifles shifting slightly. Lena ignored them, her eyes locked on Kane. He smirked, stepping forward. You've been hard to find, Lena. Took me 3 years to track you down. Should have taken the hint, she said. What do you want? Kane gestured to the outpost. Got a problem only you can solve. Missing hiker, Daniel Pierce. Ring a bell. Lena's mind flashed to the newspaper. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Oh, but it is, Kane said. Pierce wasn't just a hiker. He was one of ours. Undercover, sniffing around some old Serpent ops. He found something he shouldn't have, and now he's gone. You're the only one who knows this place well enough to find him. Lena's jaw tightened. You burned me, Kane. Left me for dead in Mogadishu. Why the hell would I help you now? Because if you don't, Kane said, his voice hardening, they'll come for you next. You think you're out? You're never out. That tattoo proves it. She glanced at her wrist, the trident and snakes staring back at her. I'm not your dog anymore. Kane took a step closer, his eyes cold. You don't help, I make a call. Your quiet life? Gone. Your name goes back on the list. You want to keep running, fine. But you'll be running forever. Lena's fingers twitched, itching for the Glock. She could take Kane and his guards in under 10 seconds. But then what? Another body, another trail? She'd never stop running. Fine, she said finally. Where's Pierce? Kane smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Inside. Follow me. The outpost was a maze of concrete tunnels, damp and cold despite the desert heat. Kane led her to a locked door, guarded by another man who stepped aside without a word. Inside was a small room, bare except for a table and a laptop. On the screen was a grainy video feed, Daniel Pierce tied to a chair, his face bruised but alive. He's in the lower levels, Kane said. But there's a catch. The place is rigged. Traps, sensors, the works. Whoever took him doesn't want him found. Lena studied the feed, her mind already mapping the layout. She'd navigated worse. You got a team? Kane shook his head. Just you. We can't risk a full op, too much exposure. Of course, she muttered. Same old Serpent. She took a comms unit from Kane and a map of the lower levels, though she didn't need it. She knew this place like the back of her hand. As she headed for the stairwell, Kane called after her. Don't screw this up, Viper. You're still one of us. She didn't answer. The lower levels were a tomb, the air thick with dust and the faint smell of rust. Lena moved silently, her Glock drawn, her senses on high alert. The traps were clever, pressure plates, tripwires, even a motion sensor that nearly caught her. But she was Viper, and Viper didn't get caught. She found Pierce in a locked cell, barely conscious but breathing. She cut his restraints and hoisted him up, his weight heavy against her shoulder. Can you walk? She whispered. He nodded weakly. Who are you? Doesn't matter, she said. Move. The way out was harder. The traps had reset, and now there were voices, more guards, closing in. Lena's heart pounded, but her hands were steady. She took down 2 men with silenced shots, their bodies slumping before they could raise an alarm. Pierce stumbled behind her, muttering about a file he'd found, something about Serpent's last op in the region. She didn't have time to listen. They made it to the surface just as dawn broke, the sky a bruised purple. Kane was waiting, his face unreadable. You got him, he said. Good. Lena shoved Pierce toward him. We're done. Not quite, Kane said. He pulled a flash drive from his pocket. Pierce's intel. You're delivering it. Lena laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You're out of your mind. Kane's eyes darkened. You want out for good? This is the price. One last job. She stared at him, the weight of the past pressing down. The tattoo burned, a reminder of everything she'd lost and everything she still could. She took the flash drive. Where? She asked. Kane smiled. You'll know when you get there. She walked away, Pierce's intel in her pocket, the desert stretching endless before her. The road was never empty for Viper. Not now, not ever. Subscribe to Silent Stories for more tales of grit, secrets, and the shadows that never let go.